Can you tell us more about the condition of the bodies that were recovered?
So all 11 of the bodies that were recovered are documented as being of humanoid physique. So basically arms, legs, eyes, mouths, but no ears or noses.
So almost exactly like what we've seen in the movies for the past 50 years.
Right. Small, skinny, gray humanoid beings that you might associate with something like the X-Files and movies like Close Encounters.
Do we know if these aliens, if they are friendly or hostile, or are they...
I don't have that information, but I can tell you that the craft we recovered wasn't shot down by any of our own forces.
So what, these crafts just crashed on their own?
That's the assumption one would have to make.
I guess it boggles my mind that there are otherworldly beings out there with super sophisticated technology that can fly around the galaxy, then end up crashing as soon as they reach our planet.
Yeah, I totally understand where you're coming from.
How long has the government and other agencies actually known about alien encounters?
From what I've been told, over 100 years.
And they've kept it a secret for this long?
We feel that the people...
Welcome back to the channel. Hope you all are having a good day. The video, the clip which you just saw, none of it was real. Well, the story is real. This story about this UFO whistleblower could be the biggest story in history. Could be. And that part, the fact that this government intelligence officer has whistleblowed that there are alien crafts, that there are species of aliens across the galaxy is starting to make its way throughout mainstream media, right? And your major news networks and such, and you're probably aware of it. If you're not, you're going to see it, as well as that you have NASA and Congress going to have some congressional hearings and such, and these big reports and agencies and such to get more information on this as it's beginning to get a lot more. So basically, the implications this could have are just astronomical. And I just felt the a need to give them some of my thoughts and opinions about what this means if this turns out to be true. It would seem the media is something going on. We're having all of these naval pilots, credible witnesses, as it were, step forward. They're seeing these crafts out there. Some of them the size of a football field. Some of them are saying they're seeing them every day. And some people believe it's some type of cover-up. Others believe that the government has well known about these things for, for decades now. And so we're going to talk a little bit about what we do know, some of the information that is out there, what could be going on. And if this is true, I can't think of anything more important than this topic, right? Just think about it, because what this essentially means is that would mean that these aliens are in control. If you got an advanced species that far ahead of you, you're kidding yourself if the next logical question isn't the type of control they could have over you. And I don't want to strike, fear in people's, but it's just certain realities we would have to accept along with that. And then we'd have to, consider if there are going to be nefarious activities, if they are, going to be benevolent, or if they're going to be harmful in some way to us, whether it be intentional or unintentional. And then, as the whistleblower brought out, there could be several dozen species of these aliens, right? And many dozens upon dozens of different variety of crafts. But I'm gonna go in a different direction with this idea, because a lot of people who watch the channel, they know that I mostly talk about cryptocurrency. Sometimes I talk a little bit about entertainment area, a little bit, talk about economics, and I believe my channel talks about the most important topic for everybody. That's the citizens dividend, universal basic income. All these ideas, I don't think there's anything more important than those, right? Uh, if you're a parent and your concern for the week is going to a PTA meeting, if your concern is you got some dream job you're going to, if it's shopping, if it's your next home you're going to buy a car, let's be for real, guys. All that pales in comparison to if if aliens are out there, as they say, as these people are in some cases risking their careers as such to bring this information forward, maybe risking their safety to a great degree. So it's not going to be anything more important than that. But it's also going to not be anything more important than citizens dividend or universal basic income. And I'm going to tie it in. I'm going to explain to you why they go together. Why that even if you're looking at an advanced species of aliens, universal basic income is going to be so very important part of that, believe it or not. And that is because universal basic income, the citizens dividend, is a model that goes along with an advanced society, right? An advanced civilization, right? I don't think they can be separated. So we're going to talk about those things a little bit today because it's an important video, I think. I mean, I can't see where anybody could disagree that these would be the most important, not only the biggest news story in history, but the most important situation in history, if this is true. So what I'm getting at is what a lot of people don't tend to connect the dots on is that we got this giant nuclear reactor in the sky called the sun, right? And one of the biggest issues, doesn't have anything to do with uh, energy, right? But more so storage. In other words, if we could store, we can increase our capacity and efficiency to store solar energy. Energy would be no problem. So it's not an energy problem, it's a storage problem. The next part is the chief concern when you see or the subject comes out about alien crafts as such. The most important thing they're looking at is what is the energy source from these crafts. That's why you always hear people talking about what kind of is it giving off any kind of emissions or propulsion, and they're not seeing anything on these crafts as they do these maneuvers and they're moving 4,000 or 5,000 miles per hour and they're doing all this stuff. But so why is energy so important to this? Well, if you really think about it, energy is important to everything we do. Production, food, etc. All the things we need and all the problems we have stem from energy, right? So you got an advanced civilization with an unlimited energy source. That pretty much solves all your problems in the world, you know. And it's kind of like the same idea with universal basic income. The reason that we have so many global problems, people have to go out and work every day and they complain about not being paid enough, and then because they're not paid enough they can't put their kids through better schools, etc. Because of those things, the energy problem, it stops everything else, right? And so now they can't produce enough to create better lives for themselves, right? But if the energy problem is solved, everything else gets solved, right? Does that make sense? So communication with an advanced alien civilization that happens to be benevolent or hoping the best for us, uh, they probably would share some of that. At least that's our hope. And if they did, what type of culture or society would it look like? Then it probably would look like one of a surplus where energy is unlimited. Because whatever's powering those ships is probably going to power everything else, right? So a society like that will probably end up looking like what a optimal level universal basic income program would look like. The one we're producing with our cryptocurrency. As many of you all watch the channel, Bitcoin MYK project, make sure you join it today. Now, obviously, Bitcoin MYK is not running as efficient as an alien civilization could run it because unlike an alien civilization, we do have limitations on energy and resources, right? So if we want to supply all of you listeners a few $1,000s per month, just you receive it through the cryptocurrency, it's the program we're running. It would cost a lot of money, right? Trillions of dollars, right? And so that's why there is a problem in us being able to do this perfectly, right? But the aliens would be able to do it. And I'm just outlining that to help you understand the importance of if this is true. Now, most people who have watched the interviews with this guy, he goes by the name of Grosh, and again, he's an intelligence officer in the military, so he's not just some quack, right? He's a person who actually works in these recovery programs. Like, it's not like he's just some guy who heard something. This is his job, right? He's a high-ranking officer in that area. That's what makes the story so compelling. Now, I think the problem is, or rather, if you listen at him, most people will walk away, listen at this guy and go, it sounds like he's telling the truth, right? That this is probably more likely true from his perspective, right? And all the information he's been able to get. But I think the problem is twofold. And here's how it goes. One of the big issues is that, first of all, the information that he's been allowed to receive, how do we know the people who's giving it to him are people that are trustworthy, right? In that way, how do we know that they aren't feeding him false information and let him appear to see things that aren't there, right? That could be the case. So, in other words, what I'm saying, some people believe this is what you might call a psyop, right? That's conducted by the government, where there could be some other outlining issue that they're using in order to push an agenda. And then why would they do that? What type of agenda would that be? Well, it could be for defense budgets, right? In other words, if you appeal to the fear of the public, then what you could do is essentially, get people to support programs like Space Force, and trillions of dollars could go into Space Force to protect us from aliens that now, after thousands of years that they've been dealing with these aliens, or at least in modern history, I believe the first significant sighting was in 1901. So what you're saying is then over the last century or so, now they've decided to become bad aliens, right? And so, and so now we got to spend trillions of dollars to protect ourselves from these species of aliens. So, and that's something we shouldn't overlook. That could very much be the case. I think at the very least, at this point, we have to consider both things could be true. You still have to consider, if this is the case, what would we do then, and kind of try to be as prepared for that as possible, right? But let's go on. Let's be responsible in that way and go on. Let's just look at it from the direction, if it is true, right? What will come out of it, right? So let me be a bit of an optimist, right? Because in these cases, what can you be but an optimist, right? I mean, we could go the other way, but even if we do, it's nothing we can do about it. It's probably would be no way we could stop these aliens either way. But let's look at the optimistic approach, right? And I'll give you a little bit more information about what's out there, about what's happening. So in the best approach, it would be like the scenario I underlined at the beginning of the video, and that is that they would share some of their technologies, and we would have this universal basic income society, right? Because it wouldn't make sense to have any other society. A lot of times when I talk to people about, or people who watch these videos, and or subscribe to our channel, they watch our content, or or whatever. They probably they listen to a lot of things I say about the citizens dividend, universal basic income, Bitcoin NYK project, making the world a better place, and actually having the tools to do it. And what do? They go from that to looking at other cryptocurrencies, talking about how great other cryptocurrencies are that aren't doing anything, right? That aren't helping the world. That help so few people. It's not even significant that most of the people or the world don't even know what they're talking about. And so their focuses go off, right? Because they think it's something more important than the message we're giving, right? But like we said in the beginning of the video, this alien discovery of a new alien civilization is just buzzing around our skies. That turns out to be true. And a society of universal basic income coupled with that turns out to be true. Those things are the most important things that you can ever imagine. There's nothing else that would be more important than that. Just think about it for a moment, right? I would go further to say universal basic income citizens dividend is that important now because through studies and research, what does it do, right? It helps our economics. It helps to reduce poverty, right? These are our major issues in the world, and I can outline how the citizens dividend fights all that, helps all that. It can it's studies that show it decreases poverty, right? That's what we want, right? There are studies that show it helps mental illness, right? Because if you're not healthy in your body, you don't have the sustenance to sustain yourself, your mental health can deteriorate, which has become a huge problem in our society. So there's poverty and mental illness right there, right? Imprisonment, the same thing. The prison system helps to reduce the prison system. The economy, right? The problems with jobs and the economy and the breakdown of the job market. Well, it's studies that show the citizens dividend can actually stimulate the economy. It can act as a market stimulus because when you put money in people's hands, what do? They spend it back into the economy in their local economies, right? And what does that do at the corporate level, at the job level, right? At the employer level, that encourages him to hire more people. Whereas at the employer level, if the market is suffering or full stop, everybody's doing bad, nobody has any money to buy anything, he hires less people, right? So, in other words, the citizens dividend, it helps in all that. We ever so often in our worlds have these big racial political divides, right? Universal basic income and citizens dividend shows society not only everybody is equal, but that society cares about everybody in society. So it does a lot for the equality fight. So it's not more important than that. But in an alien civilization, more likely that's the type of economy and system you would have. You would have one where everybody, through the abundance of their technology and energy, everybody would receive a certain basic living standard, right? Um, let's talk about some of the other reasons why this could be a true story and what it means about the aliens themselves, right? And I'm just going again. I'm going the optimistic route, and I'm going the more prepared route if this does turn out to be true, because we can. I've heard people argue about reasons this doesn't have to be true, and we can spend days and months arguing, coming up with reasons why it's not true. But the biggest impact to us would be if it is true, right? And what to do in that case. And so that's why we're going to focus in that way. But this was very interesting. There was some information came out that during the Clinton email big scandal, where she supposedly had all these classified emails, Hillary Rodham Clinton, uh, her Secretary of Defense, I believe, was sending messages to her, or was it the Secretary of the Army or something like that? Uh, I could be mistaken, but there was some high government official that was explaining to her in one of these supposed leaked emails that they had been aware of these aliens for years, in contact with them, and that the aliens were fine with humans. There was no harm to come to humans of any sort in that way, but they were letting us know that they're part of a galactic brotherhood out there someplace, and that they were kind of adamant about everything's fine as long as humans stay over on their side of the galaxy. In other words, the aliens didn't want us bringing our crap over to where they were, and as long as we complied with that, there wouldn't be any problems. And that sounds a little bit funny, but in some ways, it kind of makes sense because I mean, this is a huge universe, and you see all these bodies and these habitable, they believe habitable moons and planets and such, and different galaxies, etc. And at the edge of our galaxies, and maybe even in our own solar system, right? So what is that? So it can become kind of a weird argument to argue that, oh no, but we're the only people here, right? Now, I'm going to just conclude with a few more details how this could be possible, right? One of the big arguments being that the aliens are so far away, it would be impossible for them to get to us, right? So we've heard through Einstein theories like wormholes and such. Uh, that might be a way they could be slipping in the other dimension some type of way, uh, cutting over the distance part, and maybe they know how to do that. In fact, people like Bob Lazar, if you don't know who that is, look him up, Bob Lazar. But people like him talked about how the vehicles he was reverse engineering, they did this crazy wobble because they were these kind of interdimensional vehicles, and they would pop in and out, and that's why they move so funny. And he gives a vast explanation of it, right? So that could be the explanation for that. The other explanation is even more odd, but through relativity and certain science and quantum mechanics could be possible. And that is that these aren't so much species of other creatures or people, but they're us, and they're time travelers. And there's this big uh, UFO sighting where I believe it was a Colonel uh, Pennington, I think. I could be wrong with the information, but it's supposedly documented Colonel who he gets in this beam from the alien craft, and it kind of uploads this binary code to his mind, and he just is compelled to write it down. And once he writes it all down and they study it, etc., uh, the binary code is saying something like they're trying to help and evaluate the Earth from the year 8000, and so they're essentially time travelers, right? Time traveling from the year 8000, and maybe to avoid some type of catastrophe or help steer us in the right direction. And that would explain why they're not just coming out and making themselves aware. uh, I would invite you all to watch the news that's out about this intelligence officer by the name of Grosh. That's going to be testifying, I think, in front of Congress now, and that's a lot to go through to be what's supposedly a credible person like this. He even has the Inspector General on his side and said this is urgent, of the utmost urgent. So even if you're the most skeptical person in the world, this story might cause you to take pause a bit and at least consider this, right? In any event, there's two things right now in the universe that are more important than anything you could consider. And that is this story, probably, and the citizens' dividend. Because I believe these two events could impact you the most, no matter what your thought processes are, no matter what your beliefs are. So it's going to be odd and it's going to be weird. Even like people who are very religious, it's going to be very weird to try to figure all that stuff out, especially in a society where a lot of people are led by their religious beliefs, etc. What does that mean if this turns out to be true? Uh, So that's why I say these impacts could be so big. But even then going back to something like the citizens dividend that the Bitcoin MYK project is doing now, you should be considering that now, not only because it is the measure of an advanced society, and as I outlined in the video, all these things that the citizens dividend does for us or could do for us, why we need it so much, why we need it so much now. Even the beginning of the video with the chat GPT, the conjured up Joe Rogan, all was fake. But just by looking at the beginning of this video, that wasn't real. It was all AI technology, all chat GPT. You can tell that there's really no need for Joe Rogan or anybody else, that the computer systems can do all of that which he does, right? And we have that technology now. Think 5, 10 years down the road, these things are going to be able to do everything a human can do better, without tire, without need to be paid, all these things, right? And so that's going to have a drastic effect and change on our economy. So are you sure that when you hear about projects like Bitcoin MYK that I'm talking about, that I try to incorporate in most of my content, are you sure that it's not the most important, one of the most important things? I won't say the most important things, but let's up there in the top 3. Are you sure, especially you post community guys and hex community guys, and you think you're going to get rich off of that? Are you sure your schedule of priorities, your pyramid of priorities, right? Your hierarchy, your pyramids, like Maslow's pyramids. Are you sure that you're putting your list of priorities in the right categories, right? In the right list, right? As far as priorities, or is this just gonna, if all this turns out to be true, is it just gonna hit you out of like a bat out of the dark, right? There are very highly credible naval pilots, government officials now, congressmen, all types of people with credibility, even U.S. presidents, that are saying these things are real and true, right? So are are we going to still just continue to function like drones uh, that let society bring information to us, and we don't know what to do next. We don't know what steps to take. Even like with the citizens dividend, which we can outline it, a perfect economic system to solve like 99% of the world's problems. We don't even take that serious. Something we could do something about. Now, if these aliens show up, unfortunately, we aren't going to be able to do anything about them. We can't stop them from buzzing around in the skies now. So there's nothing we can do about them. We can do something about the universal basic income, though, the citizens dividend, that can solve so much of humanity's problems. I would also gather think that the aliens are going to be like, we're so dumb not to have it. They're going to probably be like, why are you guys so stupid that you don't see the citizens dividend as a priority? How many people think they're going to be thinking that, right? And my hope is, if they do show up and we don't have the citizens dividend incorporated, they incorporate it anyway, right? They put it out there anyway because I'm sure they're going to have all the right answers, because they're doing stuff we can't do. So they're going to have all the right answers. And my assumption is they're going to be thinking along those lines, right? Like many of you all should. But this is an interesting video, biggest story in history. So I had to weigh in on it. Guys, that's all I want to say in this video. Don't forget to join Bitcoin MYK today before the aliens come and make you join it. That's all I want to say. Until next time, as always, take care of yourselves and each other.